Hey, Matt Sitter here, CEO of AFN. At AFN, we believe that change is where opportunity happens. Plenty of change going on in the world, but we believe the best way to find opportunity and change is a network that is deep in experience, expertise, and perspective. When we do our fireside chats, we're actually trying to highlight experience from a particular area so that we can all learn that and apply it into our respective organizations and companies. Today, we are talking with Matt Bramson. He's a longtime senior executive across a number of industries where there has been pretty intense change, not just relative to AI, but relative to all sorts of things. So I'm thinking about communications and solar in particular. He's seen how AI is firsthand impacting certain industries, specifically the call center industry. And so when we think about what we're going to talk about today, a lot of this is around thinking about, hey, how is AI impacting a certain person heavy industry? And then what lessons can we pull over to other things that we might be thinking about? Matt, awesome to see you and to be able to hang out and spend a little time together.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
So when we think about the industries that you've played in that have gone through major disruption, what feels different to you right now?
Yeah, I would say that the notes are familiar, some of them, but uh, the scope of change that AI is driving and the speed of it is unprecedented. I've came into the telecom world right as it was being significantly deregulated, and technology was being applied to the network. What we now largely call the cloud was emerging uh, as a mechanism for delivering more capabilities to users without having them, have to have a lot of equipment and software in their premise. Um, Certainly saw the internet come from just an idea to something that was, transformational. Um, so there's aspects of those transitions that are um, you know that I'm reminded of as I look at what's happening with AI. Um, the big difference with AI, and I think this is to some extent right now more of the way we're talking about it than really what the reality or the best practices are, is that people are talking a lot about AI replacing people, where those previous technologies were largely about enabling people, and certainly people were replaced. The local printer probably didn't get as much business when people had websites and things like that. But this is actually, especially in the contact center, there's a lot of talk about replacing live agents with AI agents, and that is happening. But I think the opportunity right now around AI is a little different, or at least there's a lot of opportunity that doesn't have anything to do with just replacing people.
So perfect segue, because when we think about the contact center industry, I would say, historically, it's been largely about how good a job you're doing at hiring and replacing people. Super high turnover within it. And it's a game of, hey, can you hold on to people a little bit longer than someone else? And I mean, we're talking about it could be as high as 200% turnover that you've got in people. Is that a fair statement? Okay,
Yeah,
so
absolutely right. And that's yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, yeah. No, I was just going to say that people challenge was really the foundational problem that birthed the whole BPO aspect of contact centers. A lot of businesses didn't want to put as much time and energy as required into hiring people, screening them, onboarding them, training them, managing them, having to take those calls in the morning about, my car's broken down,
Right.
or I'm not feeling well. All those sorts of logistics to keep properly staffed, and then, like you said, because it's a relatively low paid job, um, there there's an opportunity to move laterally fairly easily. And so, people do move around, and you have a hard time maintaining a consistent workforce. Um, and then,
And hold on one sec, just to level set, BPO is an acronym. Can you just
oh
say what
yeah,
that means?
sure, sure. BPO stands for Business Process Outsourcing. It's a broad term, but it seems to mostly, in my experience, be used to talk about about the contact centers, even though the lots of business processes that people outsource. But it
Sure.
seems to have
Sure.
glommed onto contact centers, particularly strongly. Um, and so one of the challenges with AI, and we are starting to see the emergence of a hybrid team, a human AI hybrid team, where some calls or parts of calls are handled by AI, or AI is used to assist a live agent. Is that what it's moving both the customers of contact centers as well as the providers of contact center services to move away from the model that's been in place for decades, which is essentially charging for the service on a quantity basis, right? How many
But per hour, is it typically?
typically per hour? There's models that are per minute. Some
Okay.
models are
But by time.
are per agent. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Got it.
And there's all kinds of Erlang calculators and stuff like that that people use to figure out how many calls are gonna require how many agents and all that. Where that conversation is increasingly moving, this is a challenging migration, is moving towards pricing based on outcomes.
Okay.
And so, give you a simple example. This is client I've worked with, a large restaurant group. Um, they use a contact center primarily to receive calls and turn those calls into booked reservations at one of their restaurants. So they typically pay a rate per hour or rate per agent per month um, for that. But what they really want is a reservation. And if the provider of that service is going to use a mixture of humans and AI agents, then increasingly that restaurant group is going to want to see their costs go down because they know that AI agents are less expensive than humans. And
Yep.
so the provider of that service is going to get commoditized and get driven into a real challenge to maintain profitability. They're going to see their top line shrink, and they may even see their bottom line shrink all along with it. But if they can move that restaurant group into thinking about paying them, and I'm making up a number, but it's not far off, $2 for a reservation,
Yep.
and the restaurant group doesn't care whether that $2 reservation is booked by an AI or a human, now you've got motivation for the provider to invest in technology to get to that more efficient way of winning that $2, more profitable. And the restaurant group gets to see their costs go down. And so those are the kinds of conversations that I'm finding myself increasingly in the middle of, is trying to help both sides of the equation figure out how to transition to thinking about and paying for outcomes.
Okay, so like just to recap when we're thinking about it as an industry, so the costs make it ripe for disruption in some way because we're saying like, hey, these are people who are lower paid. We've got a lot of turnover within it, human centered, but also the amount of volume that we could conceivably do using AI can go way up as well. And what
Yep.
you're seeing is significant pricing pressure on the providers that are around this. How are they responding? You said like, hey, all right, if you're changing what you're doing, there's motivation for them to do it. But in practice, what are we seeing providers do, and where are they responding well, and where are they not responding well?
Yeah, yeah. So it's a really challenging transition. It's challenging in I think principally two ways. I'll start with probably the deepest challenge, which is philosophical, right? The philosophical challenge is, hey, wait a minute, that's not my job. Then I'm responsible for whether your restaurant is really good or whether you're charging a fair price for a cheeseburger, because those all have a bearing
Yep.
on the conversion of a call into a reservation.
Right.
I'm just providing a service. The outcome is really heavily dependent on a lot of things that are outside of my control. And the restaurant example is maybe not the best one, but imagine if you were providing tech support for a product and the product had major flaws and you were supposed to somehow solve these problems for a fixed price. That would be could potentially be a real tough challenge to try to be in the middle of. So that's why so there's a philosophical anchoring to, wait a minute, we're providing you with people, or
Yeah.
or digital people, and they cost money on a per minute or per hour or per
Yeah.
month
Yeah.
basis. And so we should charge you the same way. Why are we getting pulled into this outcome based thing? This kind of violates some of our core principles of being being an outsourced provider. Um, I don't think they'll win that argument. Frankly,
Yeah.
I think that's already is starting to bear out. Um, what I'm trying to help a lot of my clients understand is they don't want to win that argument because if you if you understand the outcomes that your clients are willing to pay for, and you charge for them in a smart way, you can actually meaningfully increase your profitability. Um, I guess the other big challenge is that what contact center providers have typically handled is, like we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, all that messy human stuff. And there's a lot
Yeah.
less messy
There's a lot
human
of
stuff.
overhead associated with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot less of that in an AI workforce. It's a different messiness, but not the same. It's more scalable. The you know the Where with a human team, the messiness scales with the number of humans. The With an AI team, there's still messiness, but it doesn't scale
Yeah.
as much. You can train 1,000 agents almost as easily as you can train one. That's not the case with humans.
How fragmented are the providers of the AI backends for the contact center organizations?
Yeah. So I'm seeing I would divide the market up into three groups of providers. There are the providers of the CCaaS, and I'll explain the acronym. It's Contact Center as a Service. So that's
Okay.
companies with names like Zoom, which we're using right now, Nice, Five Nines, uh, Dialpad. There's a bunch of them. The ones I mentioned are kind of the market. Oh, Genesis, and now I've mentioned kind of the top five,
Okay.
or thereabouts. Um, so that's one group, and they're integrating AI into their product, and they have various names for it. But the one that seems to be kind of that people kind of be gravitating towards is a model a lot of them call Copilot, which is just like the name suggests, where a the agent is doing all the interacting with the customer, but you have AI is assisting them, pulling up answers to questions, making suggestions, maybe even giving tips like, "Hey, you're talking too much. You need to listen more." So that's a co-pilot mode. Then there's an autopilot mode where the AI is actually, is the agent, is
Uh-huh.
conducting the conversation. So there's the CCaaS players, and to a lesser extent the UCaaS players, which is unified communication as a service. Then there's a group of providers that are exclusively focused on being the AI provider for uh, you know uh, you know um, uh, providing AI agents. So they don't
Yeah.
provide the contact center as a service software. They just are very laser focused on providing those agents. And in many ways, they're a bit like a staffing firm. You just hire a few of their agents, and they train them, and
Okay.
they integrate, and they plug them onto your team.
Huh. All right.
And then the third group, which is kind of the fat part of the pyramid, is there's just hundreds of startups and entrepreneurs that are using AIs, a lot of APIs from people like Anthropic and
Okay.
OpenAI and other folks, and building niche solutions, automating certain processes,
Yeah.
taking notes and integrating those notes into a CRM, little kind of spot solutions that are all over the place, and a lot of them are very cool, and priced very aggressively. And so that's kind of that's how I would divide up the marketplace at this
Okay.
point.
When we're thinking about, okay, so we figure out like, hey, there's some services out there that are being offered by a bunch of different types of companies. When we're thinking about and I think as you've discussed this, there's AI is taking some of the job away. Essentially, we're segmenting it, but there's still people as part of it. Where do people continue to fit in terms of being the contact center frontline employees.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is all very new, but what we're starting to see is that there are certain types of conversations that seem, you know, to need to be handled by a person. So that's conversations that are very sensitive. So there's an
Okay.
empathy component that could be conversations about your health, could be conversations about your finances beyond just a simple transaction. Um, could be situations. I mean, this is a little bit of a dark aspect of human nature, but there you may need to complain about something, and you may need to complain to somebody that's capable of having their feelings hurt. Otherwise, there's not much satisfaction to your complaints, right? Um,
Interesting. Okay.
and so, yeah, if I just missed a flight that caused me to miss my kid's graduation from high school, I may need to yell at somebody about that. And talking to an AI that efficiently gives me a credit on my 10,000 miles or something
Doesn't
may
check the
not,
box.
yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't check the box and make me comfortable doing business with that airline in the future.
Huh.
Whereas somebody who we kind of go back and forth a little bit. I feel like maybe there's yeah the toll has been paid, and so now I can
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
um um I there's also so I would say those are the main ones. Uh, one of my clients I worked with was taking a tremendous number of calls to people dialing 211. If you're not familiar with
Okay.
211, it's a cousin to 911, but it's specifically for people who are looking for social services because
Okay.
potentially they're homeless or they're having a mental health challenge or they need food or something. So we're finding that those conversations are deeply human, and it's really more
Okay.
about somebody feeling like they're heard than really trying to complete a specific transaction.
Okay.
Um, and so that's where we're seeing potentially a permanent need for humans. Although it's probably not smart to use words like permanent when you're talking about
Sure.
what
Sure.
AI may be capable of.
Um, so when we're thinking about the data side of this, so there's data opportunities probably everywhere if you're looking across the whole like stack of stuff around it.
Yep.
For call centers specifically, where are they seeing data opportunity? What are they capturing? What are they feeling like they can package and give back to their customers to be able to make that valuable?
Yeah. So this is what I am seeing currently as the biggest opportunity in the contact center, which is that for decades, the contact center has been the place where uh, good conversations, good ideas, valuable feedback and complaints have been uttered, and they've largely been ignored. The
Okay.
the role of the contact center has typically been to solve a problem, uh, do it in a short amount of time. One of the key metrics in the contact center is AHT, which stands for average handle time.
Hmm.
And there, in very few companies, is there a mechanism for you to take a really clever complaint or suggestion that you heard from a customer and feed that into the organization. Um, and mostly you're summarizing and symbolizing snippets of the conversation into a CRM. So you could turn a 7-minute call into, customer complained about the cost of the service. And when in reality, the customer said a lot of really very interesting things about the
Yeah,
service
right.
and how it compares to competitors and all that.
Well, it's working against that average handle time, right? Because if
100%.
I'm listening to it, that like I got no incentive as a
That's right.
call agent.
That's right. And so AI has essentially repealed two I don't know, tens of thousands of year old human limitations. It's repealed the limitations around human memory, and it's repealed the limitations around human processing. And so for years, many contact centers have been recording every single conversation. You
Yeah.
hear it when you call up, hey, for quality assurance, blah, blah, blah. What we're able to do now is ingest all those conversations, months, years worth of conversations, and not just phone calls. Could be chats, could be emails, any kind of conversation. and feed that into an AI that can process every single one, and you can ask it to look for patterns, look for suggestions. Of all the ideas that have been uttered by our prospects and customers in the last year, what are the five that are the most impactful and the most feasible to implement? And in a few minutes, you'll have that list.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I don't know if you're a comic book guy, but in the comic book and now the movie The Watchmen, there's a character called Dr. Manhattan, and
Okay. The
he
blue
can
guy.
hear, yeah, the blue guy. He can
Right.
hear everybody's thoughts in the whole universe. And that's the kind of omniscience that increasingly the contact center is able to grant to the business, where we
Okay.
hear everything. We're involved in every conversation with every prospect, every customer, every person calling to cancel or complain or to be upsold and to renew. All those conversations, we're capturing every word, and not just the words, but the emotion, the sentiment, the cadence, all of those things that can be fed into AI and analyzed. Also, we can get into some areas we haven't been able to get into before, right? We can have real accountability, right? Customer might tell you, hey, when I was talking to my sales rep, I was promised a 90-day guarantee.
Hmm.
And now I've been calling for the last couple of weeks, and you guys are telling me that there's no such thing. Well, we can go in and with a couple of keystrokes, we can find out what was that 90-day conversation.
Yeah.
Did it take place? Did we actually tell this customer that she had a 90-day guarantee? If so, we need to stand behind it. Or we can play and say, you know what, that's not exactly what the sales rep said. Let me play the clip back for you, and do that,
Yeah.
like this. Just a year or two ago, that would have been a massive investigation to try to find that
Right.
conversation if it ever
Right.
took place. And now it can be accessed in seconds.
So when we're thinking about the data on this, because I think we on the value chain, we said there's some back end providers that are out there. There's the call center providers who have the relationship with the end customer. Who who owns that data and who's repackaging it or
Yeah,
synthesizing it?
yeah. So there's a lot of interest right now in working with contact centers, both shared contact centers, BPOs that have multiple clients, as well as contact centers that are devoted to whatever company that they're a part of, um, on doing uh, that kind of ingestion and an analysis of that data. And uh, you know. Uh, the ownership is pretty clear. The the clients own the conversation when you call a business and they disclose to you that they're
Yeah.
recording that call, that they have a right to that. Um, there is some interesting things happening. I've been working with a group that is trying to establish an international standard. They call it VCon, which is short for virtual conversation. The idea being that um, in the same way that we have a PDF that is a consistent way to store all kinds of documents of all kinds of
Yeah.
different types, we have a consistent way to store conversation data that would be
Okay.
consistent across all the platforms, and that we would give consumers the right to anonymize or fully or partially redact a conversation. So go back to my little example I had about I missed a flight and therefore a
Yeah.
canceled flight was canceled. Let's say I'm not my best self on that conversation, and I get a little, text message or email from American Airlines saying, "Hey, thanks for your comments. We're, processing your 10,000 point blah blah
Right.
blah. Um, would you like to anonymize your conversation for your protection, or would you like to redact parts of it?" I might want to redact some of the four-letter words I used on that call. Or I might want to anonymize, say, keep my four-letter words because that's relevant data. Because you should know that you aggravate the heck out of customers when you cancel flights the way you did. But
Yeah.
keep my name and phone number and frequent flyer number and all that out of it. We don't have that right now. But as AI is capturing every single conversation we're having, and I've got a device, maybe you do too. I don't have it right here. I got this device from Plod that you can wear it as a pendant or you can wear it as an
Okay.
accessory on the back of your phone, and you can walk around recording everything all the time. and it can create
Wow.
transcripts and
Yeah.
follow up notes and all that. So there's a lot of conversation at the regulatory level about should we be putting a framework in place where consumers, in the same way you have control over your what cookies get dropped on your hard drive and what type
Yeah.
of remarketing you agree to, should we be putting the same kinds of controls in place around conversation data?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Personally, I
as a
believe we should.
customer, there's consequences too. If they're like, you know what, Matt Sitter is a difficult person, um,
Yeah,
you may get shunted into a different sort of bucket.
I've used the analogy, is he or she a jerk.com, right? And I just put in your phone number, and it runs across all the
Yeah.
contact centers that I've licensed the conversational data from, because we're an authorized third party in the terms of use that you've signed. And it pulls up and says, yeah, sometimes he is a bit of a jerk. And maybe that has a bearing on people's decisions about whether to work with you or not. And you have no control over that. And it's
Yeah.
cherry picking from maybe the most aggravating experiences of your life where you're complaining to a business that hasn't treated you fairly.
Um, so we're going to open this up for questions in a second, but I want to circle back to the people side before
Yeah,
we do. So if you're thinking about a question, you can come on a video or put it in the chat and we'll read it. But when we're thinking about this for the people that are out there, how is this changing the qualities of the people that we're looking for in a contact center if they have to be higher on empathy, et cetera? And in the same vein, what are the qualities within leadership that are going to allow them to better uh, integrate opportunity around this change that we're seeing?
yeah, yeah. Great question. Um, my most thoughtful clients are thinking about AI as a tool to basically backfill their team as natural attrition takes place. So
Okay.
not looking to issue a bunch of pink slips, just saying, hey, let's train AI to do handle certain call types. And then as we lose 2, 3, 4% of our employees every month, we just give those calls to AI. So the number of AI agents, steadily increases. So no massive layoffs and all that. And then what we naturally hope that we do is we retain the people that are the best at their jobs, and that not only are they able to stay on the team, but the percentage of calls that they're taking that are mundane starts to go down, and the percentage of calls that they're taking that are more challenging, either more challenging emotionally or more challenging, practically, as far as oh, I want to rebook my flight and go through 7 cities. They get more
Yeah.
of those and less of the, hey, can you just tell me how many points are in my frequent flyer account right now? Um, because that answering mundane questions is actually one of the things that drives people out of
Yeah. Right.
contact centers.
Right.
So that's the thinking, and it's emerging, as we speak. But that's the thinking, is that you do need and want to retain good people who understand how to talk to your customers and know your products and services and your policies. Um, uh, but you also want to, if you can, get off this treadmill of constantly having to bring in new people and train
Right.
them, and have a lot of them leave just a couple paychecks later.
Well, presumably those better people then like higher wages will follow because there's a rare
That's
number
right.
of those
Higher,
people.
yep, higher wages, and then I think a lot of them. I mean, there is a fair amount of migration out of the contact center into more senior roles, because in fact, a lot of organizations actually put their brightest management candidates into a contact center role for a couple of months to start off, just to really
See
understand
everything.
how the rubber meets the road. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. And then the flip side to that, leaders, what sort of qualities do you think they have to be able to get the most out of this?
Yes, I think the big one is for leaders to start to understand that the contact center is no longer a cost center, at least not exclusively. It's a real strategic weapon. It's your Dr. Manhattan level understanding of what's happening in the marketplace, what's happening in the minds of your customers and your prospects, and learning how to take that data and feed that data into the leadership team, and really position the contact center as that super valuable a market customer intelligence engine, and try to de-emphasize the degree to which you are encouraged to focus on strictly on cost efficiency.
Great. Okay, so moving to some of the questions that we're getting, we got one in the chat. Can you discuss how AI can help free up agents from routine workload so that they can be reallocated to upselling services and products? So specifically on like, all right, how does this turn into a revenue opportunity?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've got clients that are thinking about AI on a call in two different ways, and there's a bunch of different ways. But one is, do you have AI on the front end, kind of as the what we used to call the ACD for automatic call distribution? That's the press one for this, press two for that. So is
Yeah.
the AI kind of the concierge at the front desk that says, "Hey, what are you calling about?" And if it's simple, I'll handle it, and if it's not so simple, I'll hand it to a person. Um, I will also have clients that do it the other way, where you have a person, and as soon as you say, "Well, I'm really just calling to cancel," okay, great, I'll forward you to our AI agent that handles cancellations very efficiently. Um, yeah, I think that with respect to upselling, that's a really important and complicated topic, because not only are you trying to understand where the customer's at in their journey, and where when an upsell is appropriate, you also want to be analyzing their propensity to want to buy that upsell, by looking at their account history and maybe even looking across a broader consumer database to understand their broader buying patterns. And AI can do all that type of analysis, instantly. And so what I'm seeing a lot of clients start to do is, when a call comes in a kind of a co-pilot mode, like I talked about, the AI is already helping craft a custom script for the live agent that is steering them into an upsell opportunity. So starts asking questions. For example, you call up and let's say you're complaining that to your ISP that your home Wi-Fi is down.
Yep.
Well, by asking you how important reliable Wi-Fi is, and do you work from home, and what does it cost you to have an outage in the middle of a call with a client, you start to build a case to offer them a cellular backup service for $35 a month that you could ship to their home, and they plug it in, and all of a sudden now they've got two ways to connect to the network:
Right.
the fiber that you provide primarily, and the cellular service that maybe they've white labeled from somebody else. And so the AI can understand where you're going and help to prompt you down that talk track. Um, and that's actually really helpful, because a lot of people that are good at taking inbound calls and handling a process, um, they aren't naturally salespeople. But if you give them the right scripts and the right way to steer the conversation, which AI can do, very powerfully and dynamically, you can see big results.
Great. All right. Other questions from folks? All right. Well, I'll ask you one more, Matt.
Okay.
Um, what are you looking forward to this year? What are some of the opportunities that you're seeing out there?
Yeah, great question. So I'm looking forward to seeing more businesses really understand and embrace what I was talking about for a minute there, about that you have all of these conversations that are taking place every single day, and yet you're sort of ignoring those conversations, and you're paying for focus groups and surveys, and you're kind of looking through a keyhole when you could just open the door and look at the whole vista, and
Hmm.
and the implications of that, and getting the folks in the C-suite and on the board of directors to understand that a lot of the things that you're wondering about and making strategic guesses around are actually the answers to those, quantifiable answers to those, are in your contact center right now. Your customers are talking about it right now. Your prospects are talking about it right now.
Yep. Yep.
Um, We've seen tools like Gong and stuff that are helping to understand the sales conversation, but now we're able to look at the whole life cycle, all the conversations, the sales conversations, the onboarding conversations, the conversations when I got my first bill, the conversations when I called for tech support, the conversations when I called because I didn't understand how to use a certain feature, the conversation when I called to renew or to cancel. See all those conversations and really start to understand what that journey really looks like and where the emotional highs and lows are, um, and where there's opportunities. There was a question about upsells where there are a bunch of places where upsells make a lot of sense and we're just completely missing the boat. So that's the kind of stuff that excites me. The other is there's always a tendency, and I've seen this throughout my career, to use the next wave of technology to kind of automate the way we've always done things. And we're seeing that with AI too.
Hmm.
Hey, can you just program the AI to create the same kind of dashboards and reports that I have now? Um, I'll give you an example. Back to that 211 example. The 211 uses a very detailed taxonomy to code a call.
Yeah.
So if you're homeless, you might get one code. If you're hungry, you might get another code. And then if we send you to a food bank, that's another code. And that's a way to try to understand what's happening on these calls and put it into an understandable format.
Right.
And and those dashboards and charts and graphs have been essential to kind of understanding what's happening in a community and where the needs are. So I was asked, and the agents are furiously like looking through these
Oh,
code
that's a
books.
three. That's an 864. Yeah.
Exactly. So they're not fully dialed into listening.
Yeah.
Um, and their subjectivity around those codes can have a big bearing on the margins,
Yep.
at least of what you capture. So I was asked, hey, could the AI listen into those calls and just code them? And I said, sure, it could, but
Yeah.
why? And they go, what do you mean why? I said, well, what are the charts and graphs for? So somebody can stand on one foot and squint at it and wonder if this heat diagram and this bar chart correlate in some way. What if it just kept all the conversations and you could just ask it natural questions like, where do we need another food bank? Or if a donor gave us $1 million, where would we best spend it? Isn't that what you're trying to find out when you're looking at all the charts and graphs? Isn't that what the CEO or whatever is trying to understand and make decisions about? And you're like, well, yeah, I guess. Um, yeah, then let's get rid of all the symbols and the summaries, and let's just really interrogate the full corpus of all these conversations, which is
Yeah.
an insane idea because we've been scratching on stone tablets for thousands of years as a way to symbolize information that we otherwise couldn't capture and remember. So that's what I meant about the limitations of human memory and processing having been repealed. That's what I'm looking forward to is when people really understand the implications of that.
I
Uh,
think what that points out, though, is that the ability to ask good questions has primacy, right? Like,
yep,
we still have to ask if you're saying like, hey, we don't need the charts anymore, but you gotta ask the question and it'll tell you, okay, so how is that question being developed for a person?
yep. Well, I was in a conference room in Las Vegas last week at Enterprise Connect, which is a big telecom and software trade show. And I was in a session about talking about AI, which most of them were. And I heard a room full of people having a conversation that really vindicated my 19-year-old self. Because what they were talking about without knowing is they were having a conversation about epistemology and metaphysics, but they didn't know that. And they weren't having the conversation badly, candidly. Um, of course, my 19-year-old self decided to major in philosophy, um, and that type of training, of understanding the nature of knowledge and the way knowledge is structured. Um, Concepts like hallucinations are not new. They're
Mhm.
thousands of years old as a concept. And I think what we're going to find is that if we really want to partner with AI, we're going to need to really stretch ourselves into realms like philosophy in a way that we haven't for a long time. And the people that are willing and able to think at high levels of abstraction and like you said, Matt, know the right questions to ask are going to be extraordinarily valuable going forward. And the degree to which we prepare our kids um, to be those people will be imparting a great gift and advantage on them.
The the headline or the title of the next blog post that you write came to my mind as AI and the art of motorcycle maintenance. So um,
Yes.
feel free to use that. Some people get it, some people won't.
Yeah.
Great conversation, Matt. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, we
I
we
enjoyed
got
it.
everything figured out now, so we're all set
Yep.
on how
Yep.
contact
Yep.
center. No, this
This
was
is done.
awesome. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah. Thank you. This was a pleasure.